Sergeant Darius Flint stood at the base of the Astra 9 training citadel, the towering fortress of metal and crystal gleaming beneath the pale light of the system's twin suns. He kept his hands clasped behind his back, posture straight, gaze steady, even as the alien recruits around him exchanged quiet, derisive murmurs. None of them bothered to disguise their contempt. To them, the human was little more than an evolutionary curiosity, soft-skinned, heat-bleeding, and utterly unequipped for the elite stealth trials about to begin. Darius pretended not to hear the laughter, but he catalogued each face and tone, absorbing hostility the way dry soil absorbed rain. Commander Vethrak approached with measured, deliberate steps, the crystalline plates that composed his tall frame chiming faintly with every movement. His voice was a controlled rumble that echoed across the courtyard, carrying the self-assured cadence of someone who had never once been proven wrong. He spoke of expectations, of excellence, and of how every species present had earned their place through biological superiority. When his gaze lingered on Darius, the pause was long enough for the other cadets to smirk. Even Vethrak's posture seemed to harden into disdain. The commander gestured to the shimmering gate behind him, its energy field pulsing like a held breath. Beyond it lay the Camouflage Simulation Biome, a sprawling wilderness crafted from alien flora, luminescent grasses, crystalline trunks, and vaporous streams that glowed with drifting spores. It was an environment specifically designed to nullify crew disguises and expose movement with merciless precision. Several cadets shifted eagerly, their bodies rippling with the shimmer of chromatophores or bending the light around them in demonstration of their natural advantage. Darius remained still. Kravel, broad-shouldered and scaled like a living statue, leaned toward Morvex, whose chitinous limbs clicked with faint amusement. "The human will be tagged before the timer even starts," Kravel muttered, loud enough for Darius to hear. Morvex's mandibles curved in something that might have been a grin as he replied, "He has no cloaking glands, no refractive plating, no thermal sphincters. He is essentially naked." Zorowin, a silicon-based cadet whose voice reverberated like distant thunder, added, "Perhaps humans rely on prayer." The trio chuckled, their mockery echoing through the courtyard like a chorus of judgment. Darius allowed himself the smallest smile, so faint it could have been imagined. Let them talk, he thought. Words didn't track drones. Words didn't keep you alive. Vethrak raised a hand, and the hum of anticipation quieted. "The rules are simple," he said. "You will enter the simulation. Automated scout drones will begin sweeping the terrain. Your objective: remain undetected for 30 minutes. Movement, heat, sound, everything you emit will be analyzed. Biological camouflage is the cornerstone of stealth. Those without it will, of course, be eliminated swiftly. Efficiency is the natural order." The other cadets nodded in solemn agreement, their confidence radiating off them in waves. Darius stepped forward without hesitation, earning several surprised glances. He surveyed the environment visible beyond the gate, taking note of wind direction, reflective surfaces, humidity levels, and the density of low-lying foliage. While others flaunted their evolved abilities, he walked slowly along the edge of the courtyard, crouched, and scooped a handful of dark, clay-like mud from the basin near the gate. The alien stared as he rubbed it methodically along his arms and cheeks. Kravel blinked in confusion. "Is he painting himself?" he asked. Morvex clicked his mandibles. "It appears to be some primitive ritual." Darius ignored them, crushing a handful of flat, broad leaves between his palms until their deep green dye seeped into the clay coating. The scent was sharp, masking the salt of his sweat. He wound thin branches together, forming a crude, flexible mesh. With practiced movements, he tucked foliage into it, creating a crude exosuit of shadows and broken shapes. Every adjustment had purpose. Every smear, every leaf, every strand. Zorowin tilted his head. "Does the human believe he can deceive thermal sensors with dirt?" Darius didn't look up. "Not dirt," he said quietly. "Environment." The simple response unsettled the cadets more than his silence. Vethrak's crystalline brows tightened, and he made a small gesture as if brushing away a bothersome insect. The commander was already convinced that the human's attempt was symbolic at best, laughable at worst. The gate brightened, signaling readiness. A siren sounded, a deep tone that reverberated in the chests of every cadet. One by one, the aliens activated their innate camouflage, their bodies shimmering, distorting, or dissolving into near invisibility. Darius adjusted the final piece of his makeshift ghillie veil and stepped through the gate with the others. Inside, the biome's air felt thicker, charged with static, as if the environment recognized its new occupants. Luminescent spores floated lazily in the currents of faint wind, illuminating the alien terrain in shifting hues. Darius knelt beside a ridge of twisted roots and listened. There, a faint mechanical buzz. The drones were launching. The cadets dispersed quickly, moving with confidence as their natural stealth instincts kicked in. Some vanished entirely. Others left faint heat trails that thinned with every step. Darius remained where he was for a full 3 seconds, letting the world settle around him. Then, with measured precision, he lowered himself into a shallow depression between 2 crystalline trunks, letting his makeshift veil spill over him like a shifting mound of foliage. A scout drone swept overhead, its sensors casting a faint lattice of light across the terrain. Darius slowed his breathing to a near crawl and pressed his fingertips against the cool earth. The mud absorbed excess heat, the leaves broke up his outline, and the branches distorted his silhouette into something unremarkable. The drone's scanning beam passed over him once, twice, then drifted away in confusion. Kravel, positioned several meters away, stared in disbelief. Though cloaked, he could still see through the thin distortion of his own camouflage. Morvex and Zoroin, crouched not far from him, watched too. He should have been detected immediately, Morvex whispered. Zoroin's crystalline form buzzed with uncertainty. Perhaps the drone malfunctioned. Kravel swallowed. Or perhaps the human actually hid. Before any of them could further process what they'd witnessed, a second drone accelerated across the treetops, its sensors hunting for movement. The cadets instinctively flattened themselves into the grass, but Darius didn't flinch. He had already predicted the scanning pattern. The drone passed over, unaware that the human lay mere meters beneath it. The timer began its silent ascent toward 30 minutes. The trainees braced themselves for the trial ahead, but only one of them, covered in mud and leaves rather than shimmering biology, had already achieved the unthinkable. And he had only just begun. The scout drones swept across the alien terrain with a mechanical precision that belied their size, humming through the luminescent grasses and around the crystalline trunks. Kravel's scales reflected the soft glow of the spore streams as he darted between trees, confident in his biological advantages, yet even he felt a prickle of unease as the drones tracked his movements with almost surgical accuracy. Morvex moved with the jerky elegance of an insectoid predator, legs clicking softly against the ground, every joint attuned to camouflage his vibrations. Zoroin's silicon-based body refracted the ambient light, attempting to blend into the fractured reflections of crystalline surfaces. Despite their natural gifts, several drones locked onto them within seconds, signaling the first failures. Panic flitted across their faces, unaccustomed to seeing their evolved advantages fail. From his low concealment beneath a mound of twisted roots and mud, Darius observed the chaos with a calmness that felt almost unnatural. The human's eyes tracked each drone, reading the sweep patterns, their repeated passes, the slight lag between detection pulses. Every instinct honed from years of reconnaissance on Earth whispered in his mind, anticipate, adapt, survive. The alien cadets were visible, exposed in their overconfidence, while he melted into the environment using only what nature and ingenuity had provided. His breathing remained slow and deliberate, synchronized with the subtle gusts of wind that shifted the alien foliage around him. The first drone passed over Darius without registering a signature, but his attention never wavered. He pressed his hand to the cold mud beneath him, feeling the faint tremor of mechanical vibrations through the ground. With careful movements, he adjusted the leafy mesh across his form, breaking the straight lines that might catch the drone's sensors. The mud absorbed his heat, The leaves diffused his outline, and the small branches distorted any motion he made. Each subtle adjustment created a shifting pattern of chaos, confusing the algorithmic eye of the drones. Above him, a second drone swooped low, sweeping the terrain with its luminous search beams. The light hit his ghillie-like veil and bounced off in irregular patterns, registering nothing. Kravel, crouched behind a thick crystalline trunk, hissed in disbelief. How is he not detected? He's right there. Morvex's mandibles clicked nervously as he scanned the feeds from his wrist console. The drone sees nothing. No heat signature, no movement. Nothing. Impossible. Zorowin's reflective body hummed with tension, his voice vibrating like distant thunder. Our sensors confirm it. The human is not only surviving, he is untraceable. Their disbelief was thick enough to taste. For once, the alien cadets felt something alien themselves, fear, tinged with awe. Darius moved slowly, following the soft contours of a shallow depression. Each motion was measured to minimize friction, each step carefully timed with the sway of nearby foliage to mask sound. He avoided direct paths, using shadows cast by crystalline trees and drifting spore clouds to further break his outline. A slight rustle here, a displaced leaf there. Each was deliberate, part of a choreography designed to make the environment itself appear natural and undisturbed. The drones hovered nearby, sweeping in repetitive arcs, yet every pass failed to detect him. He paused near a glimmering stream, noting the faint reflection of his concealment in the bioluminescent water. The mud-drenched leaves around his body mirrored the glow imperfectly, scattering the reflection and preventing recognition by optical sensors. He exhaled slowly, controlling his heart rate to minimize thermal spikes. The mechanical hum of the drones grew louder as they focused on nearby cadets, who were less fortunate. One by one, Kravel, Morvex, and Zorowin's teammates were tagged, their heat signatures flagged, and they were gently but firmly removed from the simulation field. Their confidence eroded rapidly as the realization struck. They were not merely being outmaneuvered. They were being outclassed by a human. Kravel hissed in frustration, flattening against the grass. It must be some hidden adaptation. Humans must have evolved a cloaking ability we've never seen. Morvex's clicking mandibles betrayed panic. But we've studied them. They have nothing biologically capable of fooling these drones. Nothing. Zorowin's crystalline plates hummed louder, vibrating with disbelief. Then how? They whispered in unison, their voices tinged with growing dread. Darius remained utterly still, invisible not because of biological magic, but because he had mastered the environment itself. Minutes ticked by. The timer climbed, each second a testament to his discipline and observation. He used the terrain to his advantage, moving only when absolutely necessary and always in concert with natural movement around him. Small piles of debris were shifted to create decoy shapes, a technique designed to mislead drones reliant on shape recognition. He left no footprints or heat traces on the exposed ground, smearing mud and damp leaves over areas he crossed. When one drone hovered dangerously close, he waited for it to pass, then adjusted a branch to obscure a faint shadow. The machine interpreted the obstruction as part of the terrain, missing him entirely. Kravel, now shaking, whispered to his companions. He doesn't just hide, he blends. He manipulates everything around him like it's part of him. Morvex's antennae twitched nervously. We rely on instinct, on evolution. He relies on intelligence. That is something we can't replicate naturally. Zorowin's reflective body seemed to pulse with unease. He does not fight nature. He bends it to serve him. The human continued his slow crawl toward a new patch of terrain, keeping his body low and movements minimal. He used mud and broken foliage to break the outline of his head, his shoulders, his arms. Every shift, every adjustment was deliberate. A drone passed within mere meters, scanning the small mound where he lay. The sensors interpreted only the uneven terrain, the muted thermal signature, and the scattered leaves. Nothing human emerged from the calculated chaos. As the timer approached 25 minutes, tension spread across the field. The alien cadets, skilled and biologically gifted, had been systematically eliminated or disoriented by the drones. Darius, a single figure hidden in mud, leaves, and branches, remained untouched. Vethrak's crystalline form moved to a high observation platform, his patience thinning, the first crack of uncertainty appearing in his usual composure. Then, with deliberate care, Darius placed a small dab of mud onto the lens of a passing drone, obscuring its view. The machine hesitated, interpreting the obstruction as a harmless environmental anomaly. Darius slipped away silently, merging with the shifting shadows behind a thick crystalline trunk. The remaining cadets gaped in disbelief, unable to reconcile what they saw with everything they believed about stealth, evolution, and survival. For the first time in the history of the Camouflage Simulation Biome, a human had not only survived but dominated the test. And as the final minutes ticked down, it became clear to everyone watching that this was only the beginning. The tension in the Camouflage Simulation Biome escalated as Vethrak's patience finally broke. The commander's crystalline plates shimmered with frustration, and he activated the Hunter-class drones, sleek, predator-grade machines designed to track the most elusive prey in the galaxy. Their engines hummed with predatory precision, sensors extending like mechanical tendrils, ready to dissect every flicker of heat, every motion, every disruption in the environment. The aliens had never been so nervous. Even Crovel's confidence scales rippled with unease. Morvex's mandibles clicked in a rapid, anxious rhythm, while Zorwin's reflective plates vibrated with tension. For the first time, Darius sensed the stakes had risen beyond a routine test. From his concealment, Darius assessed the shift with calm calculation. He had predicted this escalation. Hunter drones were more precise, faster, and nearly omniscient compared to the scouts, but their algorithms relied on interpreting the environment against a predictable baseline. That was his advantage. Using the terrain itself as an ally, he studied the nearest tree trunk's thermal reflection and the patterns of the luminescent spores drifting through the air. Every detail mattered. The drift of light, the humidity that could blur heat, the subtle shadows that could obscure motion. With a measured exhale, he crouched lower, pressing his body into the soft mud of a shallow depression. Above him, the hunter drones began sweeping in synchronized arcs, their scanning fields overlapping like a net closing. One locked onto a decoy, a carefully arranged cluster of moss and mud shaped to resemble a human silhouette. It zoomed in and analyzed the decoy for a full few seconds before marking it irrelevant and moving on. Darius allowed himself the smallest of smiles. The decoys were working. Each piece of debris, each mud-smeared branch, each shadow strategically manipulated became a false signature for the drones to chase. Crovel, struggling to remain hidden behind a crystalline ridge, hissed under his breath. He is manipulating the environment using the terrain against the drones. That is impossible. Morvex leaned close, antennae twitching, and whispered, "Our camouflage is instinct, our stealth biological. He has no such innate gifts, yet he controls everything."
How?
Zorwin's crystalline form pulsed with vibration as he murmured, "He bends the world to conceal himself. This is genius, not evolution." Darius moved slowly to a new location, careful to leave no footprints or thermal anomalies. He used the bioluminescent moss, mixed with mud, to dull any heat the ground might radiate. A small trickle of water nearby provided sound cues that masked his subtle movements, a rhythmic dripping that synchronized with the faint swish of his shifting leaves. Every motion was deliberate, every pause was calculated. The drones swerved slightly, misled by the artificial patterns he had introduced. As the hunter drones intensified their search, a more immediate challenge emerged: the alien cadets themselves. Desperate to understand what the human had done, Crovel, Morvex, and Zorwin began moving toward Darius's approximate location, breaking standard protocol in their curiosity and fear. Darius, crouched behind a low mound of broken branches, noted their approach with quiet amusement. He had anticipated their instincts would betray them. They would move predictably, leaving patterns the drones could exploit. But he also recognized an opportunity. These were intelligent observers, capable of learning if guided correctly. From the shadows, he whispered instructions to them. Not telepathy, not any alien trick, just carefully chosen, low, human words. Break your outline. Flatten against shadows. Use debris to mask shapes. Move only with the wind. The aliens froze, startled. His voice was almost imperceptible, yet they understood, and, trembling, began to mimic his movements. Kravel adjusted a bent branch to disguise a shoulder. Morvex pressed his limbs against a shadowed root. Zorwin angled his reflective surfaces to mirror fractured light. It was crude compared to Darius's skill, but it offered the first glimmer of improvement. Above, a hunter drone paused mid-sweep, spinning its scanning array to compensate for a misread thermal spike in the leaves where Darius had left a subtle patch of heated stone. He had anticipated the drone's reaction and used it to manipulate its path, drawing it away from his immediate location. Kravel's jaw fell open, Morvex's antennae quivered, and Zorwin's plates flickered as they watched the machine chase a decoy instead of the human they could neither see nor predict. Darius slid into a shallow trench lined with mud, fully coating himself to eliminate the last traces of thermal and visual signatures. Even the drones closest to him passed without recognition, scanning patterns, interpreting the mound as mere environmental irregularities. The timer in the simulation ticked relentlessly toward 30 minutes, the crescendo of the trial approaching. Every move, every breath, was orchestrated to maintain invisibility, and every misstep by the aliens highlighted the humans' mastery of strategy over instinct. A final sweep of the hunter drones brought the cadets to the edge of panic. Kravel hissed, his usual confidence replaced by fear. He does not just hide. He controls what we perceive. Morvex's mandibles clicked rapidly, almost like nervous percussion. All our instincts, our evolved gifts, they fail against him. He is rewriting the rules of survival in real time. Zorwin's crystalline body vibrated with rising agitation. This is not biology. This is intellect applied to the environment. He is untouchable, yet invisible. Darius's heart rate remained steady as he watched the drones spin past his location, each misdirected by the decoys and environmental manipulation he had prepared. The alien cadets struggled to comprehend his presence, their minds wrestling with an explanation that did not exist in their evolutionary frameworks. For them, the idea that a human unarmed, unenhanced, biologically simple could outmaneuver advanced drones was nothing short of heresy. Then, in a moment of quiet triumph, Darius allowed himself the smallest motion, a single hand brushing a branch into place to further distort his outline. The nearest hunter drone paused for a split second, as if reconsidering its scan, before moving on an error. Kravel, Morvex, and Zorwin exchanged glances, realization dawning simultaneously. They were witnessing the impossible, a human manipulating the environment, predicting the machines, and surviving through ingenuity alone. The section closed as Darius crouched beneath a thick canopy of alien moss, the final minutes of the trial ticking away. Above him, the drones continued to sweep, and the alien cadets remained bewildered, partially shielded by fear, partially captivated by what they had learned. Vethrak's crystalline form appeared distant on the observation platform, his patience fraying, his judgment clouded by disbelief. Darius's presence remained undetected, the central conflict clear. Biology had its limits, but human ingenuity knew no bounds. The biome held its breath as the timer edged closer to the end, the ultimate challenge looming. Darius had survived the escalation, but the final confrontation, with drones, aliens, and the commander himself, was yet to come. The hum of the Hunter-class drones had grown into a relentless chorus, slicing through the luminescent haze of the simulation biome. Darius crouched in the thick mud of a shallow trench, his body coated in a slick layer that eliminated residual heat signatures. His leafy, branch-laden veil merged seamlessly with the alien terrain. Above him, the drones swept in coordinated arcs, faster, sharper, more relentless than any he had encountered. Yet, he remained undetected, every calculation precise, every breath measured. The stakes had never been higher. From the observation platform, Commander Vethrak's crystalline plates glinted with irritation. His composure, once impenetrable, was starting to fracture. The repeated failure of drones and alien cadets alike to locate the human had rattled him. With a decisive motion, he activated his command-grade tracking suit, a technological marvel that combined spectral analysis, heat amplification, and motion triangulation in real time. The suit hummed with barely contained power, the sensors locking onto the field with lethal intent. Vethrak's voice resonated across the biome, sharp and commanding. Expose him. Find him. He cannot be allowed to succeed. Darius assessed the new threat calmly. The commander's suit was formidable, but it still relied on predictable readings, thermal spikes, motion vectors, and optical disruption. The human had already bent the environment to his will. Now, he would do it with deliberate artistry. He shifted slightly, sliding into the shadows of a low, crystalline ridge. Leaves and branches clung to his mud-smeared frame, masking contours. Small decoys he had prepared earlier, mounds of mud, clusters of leaves, stones warmed to mimic a heartbeat, lay scattered across the field. Each was a calculated false trail, a digital mirage meant to mislead the most sophisticated sensors. The hunter drones reacted first, diverting to analyze the decoys. Vethrak moved forward, sweeping the terrain with his enhanced sensors. The world around Darius became a chessboard, each shadow, each reflected spore, each mud-clad leaf a potential piece to manipulate. Slowly, methodically, he crawled from his trench, slipping through the gaps between reflective trunks and glowing grasses. A faint branch brushed against his shoulder, and he pressed it into place, letting the irregular shape obscure the final outline of his body. Kravel, Morvex, and Zorwin followed from a distance, hesitant yet fascinated. They had learned some of the techniques, but their adaptations were crude, reactive, and incomplete. "He is not merely hiding," Kravel whispered. "He commands the terrain itself." Morvex's mandibles clicked nervously. "All our instincts fail against him. He is methodical, deliberate, untouchable." Zorwin's crystalline plates vibrated with tension. "He bends perception, not through evolution, but through intellect." Darius moved silently toward a thick canopy of alien moss, where the terrain naturally distorted heat signatures and scattered light. He paused, observing Vethrak advancing, the commander's suit scanning every square meter. With precise timing, Darius activated his final layer of deception, a mound of mud smeared with bioluminescent moss, shaped to mirror the outline of a crouching human. The sensors detected it as a viable heat source, and the commander's suit immediately focused on the decoy. Vethrak advanced, believing he had finally found the human. Darius waited, breathing shallow and steady. The decoy drew Vethrak forward, but the human remained just beyond the commander's perception, invisible not through technology, but through mastery of observation and environment. The commander's frustration became audible, crystalline plates vibrating with tension. "Impossible," he barked, scanning in erratic arcs. Every indicator in his suit pointed to a human presence that was not there, and every attempt to adjust readings only reinforced the illusion. With the drones distracted and the commander misled, Darius seized the moment. He slid from the shadows, careful to stay within natural distortions, and rose silently a few meters behind Vethrak. Every movement was imperceptible. The commander remained focused on the decoy, unaware that the human had closed the distance. Kravel, Morvex, and Zorwin froze as they witnessed the impossible unfold. A human had infiltrated the commander's blind spot, using only mud, leaves, and branches. Darius placed a gloved hand lightly on Vethrak's crystalline shoulder. The commander spun, eyes widening in shock, sensors flashing futilely across the human form. For a heartbeat, time seemed to pause. Then, Darius spoke, his voice calm and measured. "Humans don't hide from the world. We make the world hide us." The words reverberated through the biome, carrying weight far beyond the simulation. Cadets and drones alike froze in recognition of the human's triumph. Vethrak staggered backward, disbelief etched into every crystalline plate. He attempted to recalibrate, to justify, to reclaim authority, but it was too late. The trial was over, and the victor had already emerged. Kravel, Morvex, and Zorwin approached cautiously, awe and respect battling residual fear. They had witnessed the human conquer what no evolved skill or technological enhancement could achieve. Darius offered a nod, silent acknowledgement of their presence, a teacher recognizing potential in eager students. He had not only survived the ultimate challenge, but had demonstrated mastery that no alien evolution could replicate. Vethrak's voice, sharp yet reluctantly respectful, cut through the tense air. Your ingenuity surpasses expectation, human. You have won this trial, though it defies all logic. Darius merely nodded, letting the statement stand without argument. Logic was not what had guided him. Observation, patience, and adaptability had. The final moments of the trial passed with Darius remaining in his concealed stance, the cadets circling cautiously. The drones, now disengaged, drifted back to standby, unable to reconcile the discrepancy between expectation and reality. The biome, once a testing ground for alien superiority, had become a stage upon which human intellect and cunning had rewritten the rules. As the observation platform's lights dimmed, signaling the trial's conclusion, the cadets and commander alike understood a single, undeniable truth. Evolution alone could not account for this. Humans, seemingly fragile and biologically simple, possessed a mastery of strategy, environment, and ingenuity that no species could match. The simulation was over, yet its lesson would resonate far beyond the field. Darius stepped lightly from his concealment, mud streaking his undersuit, leaves clinging to his arms. The alien cadets approached, tentative but eager. "Teach us," Kravel whispered. Morvex nodded. Zorwin's plates vibrated in affirmation. The human's quiet confidence, the calm in his measured movements, offered a silent promise. The knowledge of surviving and mastering. Stealth could be shared, but only through patience, observation, and understanding of the world itself. And so the human stood victorious, not by alien evolution or technological aid, but by intellect, skill, and the audacious certainty that the world itself could conceal him. The aliens had evolved camouflage. The human had mastered it. The lesson was clear, and the echo of its revelation would linger long after the biome returned to stillness.